All right. Welcome to the Shoemake Take 2025 NFL Season Preview Series. And today we continue with the AFC South, talking about a team that, while I don't think is going to be good as most people think, are still going to show solid improvement as the season goes on. I'm talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's break it all down. Hope you all are having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shoemake, and this is the Shoemake Take. Before we start talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars, I want to briefly break down how this season preview series works. So if you want to just jump ahead right into the Jaguars discussion, I'll put a timestamp right here. It's also in the playhead in the video and also in the video description. So go ahead, and if you watch the video, if you want to go ahead and check it out. But here is how the 2025 season preview series works. So we're going to start off by recapping last season. Pretty much, I'm going to state the record, what happened, and a couple key points as to why the season went how it went. Nothing too fancy, nothing too serious. And then we'll go into the offseason, talking about their free agency adds and losses, along with who they drafted, any notable coaching changes or front office changes, in this case for the Jaguars, which we'll talk about in a minute. So we're going to recap all of that. Then we actually get into getting ready for the season, where I'm going to start by stating my overall thoughts on this team, what I think it'll look like. Are they going to be good? Are they going to be bad, mid, right? Along with noting strengths and weaknesses with the team and discussing whether I think it's because of talent, depth, etc. And then we continue then with analyzing their schedule. I did not choose to mark which games I had specifically each team winning and losing for this segment, just because that's a crapshoot. I predicted every single game to predict every single team's record, but at the same time, that's just trying to put it here. It's kind of like, to me, it doesn't mean that much. Sure, like obviously I put the time and consideration into each game when I picked it, but I feel like that's just too much. It's just too much. It takes away from the overall scope of what we're talking about, in my opinion. I'd rather focus on more stuff like the strength of schedule. Is it easy? Is it difficult? What part is easy? What part is hard? Specifically, also identifying key matchups, right? Most important games, I think, are on this team's schedule. In this case, the Jaguars. And then we'll quickly mention, okay, where are they placing in the division? Are they making the playoffs? And then I'll cap that off with my official record prediction for the 2025 season for each team. And then lastly, we'll wrap a little bow on everything, looking at certain storylines to watch, whether that's certain comeback stories, whether it's, rookies I'm looking at, players on a contract year, coaches on a hot seat, stuff like that I will be important for you, for me, and for every other NFL fan to follow each team. Okay, so now with that being out of the way, let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars and how I think they will do in 2025. But before we do that, we got to talk about 2024. Last season, the Jacksonville Jaguars finished 4-13. This team was terrible. They were not consistent. They also dealt with a lot of injuries, which really, really held this team back. And when Trevor Lawrence went down, this team was barely staying afloat, and they just fell off a cliff. But that's not to say that this team was all terrible. They had some games in there when Trevor Lawrence was healthy where they were oddly competitive. They were very competitive against Houston the first time they met up. They were consistent. They were consistent. They were competitive against the Packers. I think they lost by only 1 point in that game. They were, at first, got destroyed by Philadelphia. No, excuse me. They were competitive with Philadelphia, but then like the later end of that game, the Eagles pulled away from it. But they were competitive in that game for a decent portion of it, so that counts for something. So this team showed some good things, but didn't show enough of it to be any good. And then the injuries absolutely just collapsed this team, which leads into our offseason, which started off with the firing of head coach Doug Peterson. This was something that I thought could happen. It was definitely realistic. It was at least on the table for most people. But he ended up getting fired. He ended up getting replaced by Liam Cohen, the former Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator. And that itself brought a lot of emotional baggage because of how he got to Jacksonville, essentially burning the bridge in Tampa to get here, pretty much lying about where he was, and then a whole bunch of back and forth rumors and banter between if he's going to stay, if he's going to go. Because before he had, here the timeline, he was going to go look at head coaching jobs. said he wasn't and was going to stay in Tampa for one more year. And then out of nowhere, the report came out that, oh yeah, he's in Jacksonville interviewing for their head coaching job. And then a couple days after that, boom, he is now the head coach of the Jaguars. And then he tried to bring coaches from Tampa to join him in Jacksonville, and they all denied and declined. So that was pretty interesting and pretty telling of how he handled that situation. But again, that also continued into the GM spot where they fired GM Trent Baalke. And this happened right before Liam Cohen was hired, which leads me to believe that the firing of Trent Baalke influenced Liam Cohen to accept the Jaguars' job. And in his replacement, they hired James Gladstone, a former front office assistant with the Los Angeles Rams, a young guy, a Gen Zer like myself. So to see him in that position, good for you, James Gladstone. Even though you're a division rival, I still hope you do good just because you're in my generation. Us guys got to look out for each other, but that's besides the point. They brought him in, and even then, that was still problematic for me, not because of James Gladstone as a hire, but because they brought him in a couple weeks before free agency brought in. And at that point, I mean, they hired their GM so late compared to every other team that, fixed up their coaching staff and whatnot before the season, or after the season, rather. And he pretty much, to me, had no time to properly set up his plan, really get acclimated with all of his new co-workers, his new environment. I feel like they didn't give him enough time to actually prepare for the job he was stepping into. But with that being said, he did do a pretty good job, in my opinion, with what he was given. And so I will give that a plus, which, along with Liam Cohen and James Gladstone, they completely revamped their coaching staff, running a whole bunch of guys from a bunch of different places with the idea that they are starting off with a fresh, clean slate. And that is what they sought out to do. And then in free agency, I thought they did a solid job. They didn't do a whole lot, but they did more than enough to me. They added Patrick McCarry at guard. They added center Robert Hainsey because Mitch Morse retired. And then they added receiver De'Ami Brown, corner Jordan Lewis in the slot, who I liked, coming from Dallas. And then they added safety Eric Murray. Fine, I guess. And then they also added Chuma Edoga, Emmanuel Ogbah, longtime veterans, to add depth to their offensive and defensive lines. They also added 3 tight ends in Johnny Munt, Hunter Long, and Quinton Morris to replace the depth that they lost in free agency this season. And they also added quarterback Nick Mullins. And then they also added Dennis Gardeck and DeJuan Smoot to add more depth, along with tackle Fred Johnson. And then who they lost? Number 1 was tight end Evan Ingram. This was a terrible loss to me. Maybe not terrible, that's probably overselling it, but it was a difficult loss because now your tight end 1 is Brenton Strange, who they like and are expecting for him to take a step forward. But me personally, I would rather have Evan Ingram on my team than Brenton Strange right now, going into a new head coach, Trevor Lawrence, going into another year where you need the most weapons around him that have been proven, and Brenton Strange is not proven by any means. The next one they lost was safety Andre Sisco. That's unfortunate. Wait, did they lose Andre Sisco? I thought he left. I might be thinking of someone. Oh, wait, what? Hold on. Let me pause this for a second. Andre Sisco, did he leave this season? Is that even right? Why is this in the script? I thought he had already left. Who am I thinking of? Oh, no, never mind. I'm sorry. I was thinking of Rayshawn Jenkins, who left last year to go to Seattle. No, Andre Sisco left. At least I'm 80% sure. So if he left another time, please let me know in the comments. I apologize if I got that wrong. But either way, I mean, if it is true that Andre Sisco left this offseason, that is unfortunate. Andre Sisco was a solid player to me. And then I already mentioned the tight end depth that they lost within Luke Farrell. And they also lost, no, that's it. They lost, Josiah DeGora. Saw that. And then they also lost Mac Jones as a backup. That's unfortunate, I guess. But, I mean, he's a backup. He ended up going to San Francisco. And they got him Nick Mullins. It's fine. But they also lost Josh Reynolds, who ended up going to... He went to the Jets, I think. Yeah, he went to the Jets. They lost Ronald Darby, wide receiver Tim Jones. You can see also here on the list Jeremiah Ledbetter, Devin Duvernay, Blake Hance, and I mentioned DeGora, linebacker Caleb Johnson, Joe Gillis-Harris, and then Eze Otemiwo. I'm going to take a shot at that, I guess. But the thing is, most of these players that they lost were depth. And then they added solid depth in replacement for the most part. So I can't really complain. They definitely gained more than they lost, which in free agency, if you're gaining more than you're losing, simply put, I mean, you're doing a good job for the most part. And in the draft, I thought they had a pretty solid draft for the most part. The first, they traded up to second overall to take Travis Hunter, the wide receiver / DB out of Colorado. Love the pick, love the move. Travis Hunter is a generational talent, and they needed help at wide receiver and in the secondary. So getting a guy that can do both, really, very, very much appreciated. They also added Caleb Ransaw, who a lot of people thought was a reach, but apparently out of camp, things are going really well for Ransaw. They also added guard Wyatt Milam, who I thought was a kind of a steal. Has a lot of upside, I think. Then they added running back Bashal Tootin, linebacker Jack Kaiser, linebacker Jalen McLeod to add depth to that spot with the uncertainty at the starters for the most part. And then added safety Rayon Lane, Jonah Monheim, and LaQuint Allen. So adding really good running back depth. Added a safety, offensive lineman, which helps. Obviously, Travis Hunter is great. Caleb Ransaw is looking very impressive. And Wyatt Milam, I think, was a steal in his own right. So overall, this Jacksonville Jaguars offseason, I would say, is optimizing. Would I say it's an absolute success? Not quite. We have to see what all the coaching changes does, if James Gladstone is good as GM in year one. So we'll have to see. But on paper right now, I thought they did a pretty good job. So that's why I think they're more improved than not improved. Wait, what? No, they are an improved team. I don't know why I said that, but they are improved. And now we go into the overall thoughts on this team, and this is where I'm kind of clash with people a little bit. So again, a lot of people think that Jacksonville is going to bounce back and have a winning record. Some people say they're going to go 9-8. I simply don't believe that. Every year, this is all I hear is Jacksonville, this is going to be the year they're good. This is going to be the year they're good. I've heard it for years now, and quite frankly, I'm tired of it. I'm not going to say the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be good until they've earned that, until they've shown that they can be good and they're making a positive step in the right direction. Okay, I can say, okay, they can realistically take a step forward and be good, fine. But also, you're going into a new head coach, a lot of new coaches. You also have a couple new players you got to deal with. There's a lot of newness with this Jaguars team that's going to take time for it to gel properly. It's not going to be, great out the gate, and which we'll talk more about why with their schedule especially. But while this team won't be as good as most people say they will be, because I think this team's going to struggle early a lot, especially with the rookie head coach. And this roster overall is solid. It's not great, but I do think this team does get better as the season goes on. And I think as you see Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen working together, trying to figure out how that relationship will work along with the rest of the offense. Travis Hunter progresses and moves along. Brian Thomas Jr. continues to be really good. De'Ami Brown is solid. So I think that they will get better as the year goes on. They have the pieces in place to have that type of upside. Going into their strengths, I think their best part of their team is edge rusher. I mean, Josh Hines, Allen, Trevon Walker as a duo, in my opinion, are very underrated. One of the better ones in the NFL. Last year, they had kind of a down year, if I'm being honest. As a unit, they weren't as good as they normally were. But I think that has a lot to do with everything else around them being hurt and also being lackluster, especially the defensive tackle spot, which we'll talk about in a second. But I think with the good pieces around them, I think this is a really good edge rusher duo. And quite frankly, they will be probably I think they're the second best edge rusher duo in the division behind Houston. So that's going to give them a big boost if the Jaguars are to be good this year, or at least hit where I think they're going to hit. Their second one, in a weird way, I'm going to say offensive line. Now, the offensive line should have been good over these past couple years, but they have underwhelmed. But I think with Patrick McCarr and Robert Hainsey in there, I think those two spots are fine. Walker Little at left tackle is fine. He's good. Urza Cleveland, I don't know. He's probably the weak link on that offensive line. They brought in the rookie offensive lineman. I can't remember what his name was. Wyatt Milam. Yeah, they brought in Wyatt Milam to bring competition for him. So that'll be an interesting battle to watch in training camp. And then at right tackle, former first round pick Anton Harrison, big old guy. I think this offensive line should be good. I mean, they invested into it. They talked about protecting him. They brought in depth. They, of course, like I mentioned, they drafted Wyatt Milam. So, I mean, they took their time to invest into this offensive line a little bit and make sure they can make it the best they can make it. And for once, I think that it could be good this year. I think it's going to be probably top 16. Man, no, that's not good. That's average. I'd say probably 13th or 12th. If we're talking, I think that's where they're probably going to finish. Maybe they'll have a little bit of struggles to start the year, but as the team gets better and progresses during the year, I think you're going to see a significant improvement into this offensive line, where by year's end, you're going to say, okay, this is a really good unit. Maybe you add one piece here, one piece there, and all of a sudden, boom, you're going to have an elite offensive line. They're close. They're pretty close. Just not quite there yet, but they are close. Another strength is wide receiver. This one, probably, I thought about leaving off, but I decided I was going to put it on there because Brian Thomas Jr. going to year 2, I mean, a lot of people are excited about Brian Thomas, myself included, even as a Titans fan. And I hope we shut him down when we face him. But every other week, I'm hoping Brian Thomas Jr. goes nuts. I think he's a really good receiver, and he's absolutely surprised people last year. All the talk about was Marvin Harrison Jr. Then some people were like, oh, Malik Neighbors. And then Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors had the best rookie year out of all of them. But I mean, Brian Thomas was right there next to him. They were neck and neck with each other almost the entire year. And if the offense in New York wasn't all Malik Neighbors, then probably Brian Thomas would be right there neck to neck with him. But the Giants, they literally had nothing except for Malik Neighbors. That was it. I'm not counting Wan'Dale Robinson. Tyrone Tracy was good, but that was pretty much it for them. But at least in Jacksonville, Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne sometimes were okay. At least it was more consistent. No, I can't say that. No, that's not right. But continuing on, though, Brian Thomas Jr., fantastic. Travis Hunter, he's a rookie, so we'll see how he does, but at least that's exciting. And then De'Ami Brown, I think, is a very solid receiver. Definitely did not get enough flowers in his time in Washington, especially last year in the playoffs. He was going nuts. So seeing a guy come in like that and be a security blanket and be reliable, that is great. And then overall, this is kind of like a cheating one. I would say their depth is a strength. They definitely got better with their depth, with who they added in free agency and who they added in the draft, especially on the offensive and defensive lines. Their depth is better than what it was last year. And for a unit that was injured out the wazoo, the whole team was, but adding depth for your trenches is going to be so important to having this team stay stable and stay afloat during the entire year. Where if someone gets hurt, you're going to have a player to step in a couple games in a pinch and play well and at least be serviceable and not be a liability. So having this depth that they've added is great. It's really great. And I think that this team will be healthier overall. They have to be. Last year was pretty crazy. They got a really bad injury bug to me. But adding their depth is just so good for them. It's important. And I think if someone gets hurt, they're going to be better equipped to deal with it this year compared to last year. A lot of this, though, not a lot of this. What am I saying? They do have some weaknesses, though, that are pretty important to address. Number one is running back to me. Travis Etienne is going to his last year of his contract. And quite frankly, last year he was very disappointing. Tank Bigsby at some point took snaps over Travis Etienne, and he wasn't that much better either. This run game, they need to get some good usage out of Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby both. I mean, there's a reason why they drafted 2 running backs in this draft. Not only because it was a stacked running back class, for being honest, but also, I mean, they did that because they needed depth, but also to bring competition for these 2 guys, because if Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby don't cut it this year, they might both be gone, and the 2 running backs they drafted might be taking their place. The running back position is not very good for longevity if you're not good. If you're not good, you will be replaced instantly. So they need to step up and be good this year. Unfortunately, right now, that is a weakness on their team. Another one is defensive tackle. This group for the Jaguars last year was really, really bad. Eric Armstead was below average, had a down year. But guys like Mason Smith, and then I can't remember what his name is, who's starting next to Eric Armstead. But these guys just were underwhelming. They were very underwhelming, inconsistent. And the fact that it didn't do a lot to really add some competition or juice to it is disappointing. But they are banking on their talent being healthy and taking another step forward, which they do. The players that they have are talented. I'm not going to say that they're not. They just have not been able to step up and develop like people have expected them to. And so seeing them not bring in competition is disappointing. That's why I had them drafting Mason Graham when they had the 5th overall pick throughout the entire draft process for the most part. So seeing this not really change is a weakness for now. Maybe it gets better. I'll keep an open mind to that. But considering that there was no improvement and how bad they were last year, I can't be too excited about the defensive tackle group. The other one is linebacker. Linebacker isn't really much of a weakness where I see a liability, but there is some inconsistencies. Devin Lloyd is going into a contract year, and he's been inconsistent. Ventrell Miller has also been kind of up and down. Last year was not that good compared to a couple other years in the past. And so, I mean, I like Foyesade Oluokun. He's a good player, but there's also another reason why they brought in multiple linebackers in free agency in the draft, because they needed to add depth and bring competition to these guys. Because Devin Lloyd, if he doesn't step up after this year, he's gone. He's a free agent. So you need another guy that can push him a little bit, and maybe he plays well and gets a second contract with Jacksonville. But right now, I don't see that as being likely, and I think that you're going to see inconsistent play from this unit overall, and it's going to hurt the middle of this defense. The next one is safety. These two safeties that Jacksonville has, I'm just not hyped about at all. I can't remember the other guy's name. Eric Murray is the guy they had brought in, and the strong safety next to him, I can't remember his name for the life of me. I apologize. But going into when I evaluated the Jaguars, this safety group is just not going to be very good. This is definitely, I would say, the weakest position on their team, in my opinion, and they're going to struggle. The corners should be good. They should be solid at least. But not having help on the back end is going to suck. And you're going to see a couple times this season where Jacksonville's defense is going to get gouged over the middle of the field, get gouged deep. You're going to see that happen a couple times against some good teams, especially early in the year. And so that's going to be something that Jacksonville's going to have to figure out and maybe fix as soon as possible. But right now, I don't expect it being very good for them. Now we move into their schedule. Offseason is done. How I feel about the team is done. Let's actually look at their schedule, which I'm going to put on screen right now. Looking at it, oh my goodness. You see those first 7 weeks? This is brutal. This is absolutely brutal for the Jaguars. There's only a couple games in there that I think they could actually win right now, and it is just a gauntlet. At least, though, 4 out of their first 6 games are at home, which should give them help. Right? It's always nice being at home, but these are some really good football teams in this bunch right here. And so I don't think the Jaguars are going to be very good to start their first half of the year. But in the middle of the year, right smack dab just about, they have a bye week. They'll go into that. They're going to refresh, get recuperated. And the second half, when you look at it, is so much easier. You got divisional games, 5 of them after the bye week, which divisional games, say what you want about Tennessee, Indianapolis, Houston, whether they're good or not. Divisional games are always probably going to be close. Those are the opponents you know best, so you would expect those. They're all winnable. In the AFC South, every single AFC South division matchup is going to be winnable in a way, essentially, because these teams are never far apart from one another, considering this division is always perpetually garbage. So every divisional game is technically winnable because it's a divisional game, and the rest here along after that are mostly winnable. So the Jets, I say that because the Jets are in there on their schedule, but the Jags, they do have a real opportunity here after their bye week to snag a couple wins, get on a roll, and finish the season a lot stronger than how they started. And that's what I see in Jacksonville this year, looking at their schedule. And some of the most important matchups, number 1 and number 2, I'll pair them together, week 7 at the Rams and week 9 at the Raiders. These two teams specifically, because the Rams is going right before their bye week and the Raiders is right after their bye week. So the Rams game, I have them losing this game, but their record's not going to be great. It's going to be interesting to see how well they compete in this game. Are they strong? Are they keeping it close? Because at least if you want to go into the bye week, even if you lose, you at least want to go into it strong, saying you fought really well against a good football team. Along with that, how do they look immediately after the bye week on the road in Las Vegas? If this team can go in and beat Las Vegas on the road after their bye week, that can really spark a second half surge that I think they're going to have. Do I think it happens with the Raiders? I don't know. We'll simply have to see. I think the Raiders, a little bit of a spoiler, they are an improved football team compared to what they were last year. So I think this is going to be a close competitive football game. And also, these two teams finished 4-13. They faced off later in the year, and the Raiders ended up winning that game and ended up screwing themselves out of a draft pick and potentially drafting a quarterback, which is why they ended up going with Ashton Genty at number 6. So this win essentially kind of cost the Raiders that chance. But they do have Geno Smith now, so can't complain too much. So it's going to be interesting to see how well the Jaguars compete against the Rams going into their bye and how they compete after coming out of their bye week. Week 12 against the Cardinals is my next one, because this is the next game on the schedule when you look at it where, okay, yeah, the Jaguars can most definitely win this game, and this is where, okay, here we go. This is where the kickoff of really winnable games starts for them. So if they can win against the Raiders and the Cardinals, that's going to be really positive for them. But the Cardinals, like I said, is where everything could kick off for this team. And then the last one, same thing as I mentioned with the Titans in my preview video there, so go check that out when you guys want to. But weeks 13 and week 18 against the Titans, same thing as to why I explained it in my Titans video. These two teams were neck and neck with each other. They're division rivals. It'll be interesting to see how far along these two teams are. I expect them to be neck and neck throughout the entire season. So watching these two games and how well they compete against each other is going to be very, very important for both of their seasons. I actually have them splitting this year, as they usually split anyways, but I expect them to be close-knit the entire year. So now that the schedule has been covered and has been talked about, ultimately I have the Jaguars finishing second place in the AFC South. And obviously that means Houston. I have them winning the division once again, to nobody's surprise. But we're not talking about the Houston Texans right now. The Jaguars finishing second place. I do not have them making the playoffs. Not this year, unfortunately. But with the record, I have them going. There is reason for optimism. I have the Jaguars going 7-10. And the reason why, I think the first half of their schedule is brutal, but the second half is a lot better, which is where I see them winning a lot more of their games and finishing 2025 very strong and actually going into a year, 2026, with plenty of optimism. And if this is what happens, okay, maybe, just maybe, I'll say the Jacksonville Jaguars are actually going to step up and be a good team in 2026. But we got a long way to go before there. And let's cap off with some storylines that I'm going to be watching for. Number one is Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen, of course. How does Trevor Lawrence perform in Liam Cohen's offense? Obviously, Liam Cohen as a coach is a great offensive line. Look at what Tampa did last year with him being a play caller, along with his time in Kentucky. He actually made Will Levis look good, so that counts for something. So it'll be interesting to see how his young, modern approach to the offense takes place. And the thing is, too, his offense utilizes a lot of running backs and utilizes the run game a lot. And so maybe we'll see him get more production out of Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. But going back to Trevor Lawrence, there's an offense and a play caller that really could suit Trevor Lawrence's strengths. And compared to Doug Peterson and Urban Meyer before him, they simply did not do a good enough job of that. I think Liam Cohen is more than willing to build this offense specifically to what Trevor Lawrence can do best. They added talent and depth to help with that on the offensive line at the receiver position. So I'm really interested to see how well Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen work together and how well this offense progresses. Number two of my storylines to watch is obviously Travis Hunter. The big thing for me is, I think Travis Hunter is going to be a good player. I just don't know how much in his rookie year. And also, the snap count is very specific, because I'm someone that believes, while they might believe that he can play every snap on both sides, that's not happening. I don't want to burst anybody's bubble here. I'm sorry, but that's simply not going to happen. The NFL's too physically demanding and taxing mentally as well to be able to do that on both sides. I'm not saying that he can't, because, Travis Hunter cannot do that. I'll keep an open mind. He definitely, it's out of the realm of, or it's in the realm of infinite possibilities. The odds of him doing it are greater than zero. I'm not saying he has no shot at all, but the idea of him playing every snap on offense and defense at the NFL level is just highly unlikely. Like I said, it's going to be very physically demanding, mentally demanding, and also with the talent on the field in the NFL compared to college, that's just going to be a very tall task. But if there's anybody that can probably do it, it is Travis Hunter, because he has insane work ethic and elite football character. So I'll root for him to do it. We'll have to see, but I just don't expect that, at least out of his rookie year. But it'll be interesting to see what he does. Number three is Brian Thomas Jr., obviously going into year two. I'm hoping he takes a big step forward. He looks like he could be. We'll have to see. But the pieces are in place for him to absolutely explode more than he did last year. We could be talking Brian Thomas by year's end being top 5 in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. Once again, he was everything for the Jaguars offense last year for the most part. So having Travis Hunter and De'Ami Brown, along with Potentially a better running game. We'll have to see. I really don't think so. But at least with better receivers overall in that room, that should take some attention off of Brian Thomas and make things a little bit easier. Because if you don't cover Brian Thomas, or if you cover Brian Thomas and then you leave out De'Ami Brown to get open and attack you over the middle, or Travis Hunter to make a big explosive play down the sideline, you might set yourself up for disaster. So it's going to be important to make sure all three of these receivers are corralled, because any one of them could pop off if you give him the opportunity to, not just Brian Thomas. So Brian Thomas, I'll be looking at him to see if he steps up with theoretically less coverage being directed in his way, although he will receive a lot because he's the best receiver on this team. But hopefully with the development of Travis Hunter at receiver and the reliability of De'Ami Brown, some of that pressure can be taken off of him. Number 4 is the corners in this group. Their 3 starting corners are going to be Jarrian Jones, who's going into year 2, Tyson Campbell, who's coming off of a kind of down year for him, and then Jordan Lewis in the slot. The floor for this unit is kind of low because Tyson Campbell, I've never been super duper high on Tyson Campbell. I like him, but he's never been able to take that next notch where, okay, this is a very solid, really good corner. But he does have that potential. And then Jarrian Jones is a guy who also has similar potential, but is going into year 2. So we'll have to see. Some people are expecting him to make a jump, but it's not really known yet of what he'll do. Jordan Lewis is going to be solid. I think he was solid in Dallas. But I will say, though, with the upside of Tyson Campbell and Jarrian Jones specifically, while their floor might be pretty low, their upside is really high, where if they all do hit and play well, this defense is going to be a lot better. They're going to be able to circumvent the issues in the safety spot. They're going to help circumvent the issues with the defensive line. Because if they can cover just a little bit longer, that can compensate for the lack of pass rush that the Jacksonville Jaguars might have, especially in the interior. And if that holds back the edge rusher group, you're going to need some corners that can cover. And if they can go out there and they can go cover, it'll make their job a lot easier. Number 5, I already mentioned them before. Going into contract years, Devin Lloyd and Travis Etienne. These guys really need to step up and play well this year, because if they don't, they are out of here. And are they going to be out of the league? Of course not. But it's going to be hard for them to find a starting spot somewhere else if they don't make it work in Jacksonville. This is their last chance to truly be starters on a team. And if it's not here, it's not in Jacksonville. I don't know if it's going to be anywhere else. So they really need to play well to ensure that they can keep their career as a starter moving forward. So I'll be really paying attention. Excuse me, my throat just got dried up, to those 2 guys. But with that being said, that reaches the end of our discussion. We've made it to the end. The Jaguars are going 7-10. And while I think their season is going to start off rough, I think it's going to get a lot better as the second half of their schedule really favors them a lot. But that is going to do it for me today, guys. I hope you all have enjoyed it. And if you've made it this far, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe button, as it helps the channel out tremendously as I continue to spread my football passion to more and more people on this platform. We are at 91 subscribers. We broke 90. You guys are killing it. We're trying to reach 100 before the season starts. And right now we're 2 months away. And at this point, 9 subscribers, you guys are going to clear that. So continue hitting that button. And also, it is free. And if it's free, it's for me. You know what I'm saying? Also, Jaguars fans, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you think 7-10 is too harsh? Do you think they're going to finish with a winning record? Are you someone that thinks the Jaguars are going to be worse than 7-10? Let me know all your thoughts on everything I said in this video. And lastly, make sure you guys share the video on social media and follow me on social media on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, posting clips on there very, very frequently now. We're trying to get to more consistently. But that is another topic for another day we're going to be figuring out at some point. But for now, that is going to do it for me today, guys. Hope you all have enjoyed. And as always, I will see you all next time.